on this, particularly the fellow who seems to be the most vocal of all. MHA Paul Lane is on line 3. How are you, sir?
Jonathan, I am doing fantastic. I do want to, talk about the fishery. Before I do, though, I just want to say I just left the Reed Centre in Mount Pearl. We had our Mount Pearl Citizen of the Year banquet this evening, and we had 7 fantastic community volunteers, great nominees, and either one of them certainly could have been selected. All are doing great work in their own right. But at the end of the evening, our Citizen of the Year is Miss Sally Seward. And Sally has lived in Mount Pearl for a long time, I think some 40, 50 years and so on. She's been a lifetime volunteer, in particular involved with Girl Guides, in Mount Pearl, Marconi Girl Guides, the Mount Pearl Seniors Independence, and the Mount Pearl Legion, and so on. And like I said, tremendous volunteer, and I just want to offer her my congratulations publicly on all the great work that she has done and continues to do for the citizens of Mount Pearl.
Congratulations, Sally Seward. I love that last name, Seward. There must be a story behind that as to the origins of it.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll leave that for another time. Perhaps Sally can call in and give some genealogy. So, Paul Lane, I put it out there in my tirade at the beginning of the program. Why the hell are we not hearing from any members of the House of Assembly on Mr. Gillett's condition? We have, of course, heard from several MHAs with respect to the continuing saga between Fish NL and FFAW, and, of course, DFO being the overlord here. But why is it that we are not hearing any expressions of either concern or anything, frankly, with respect to this hunger strike? Is it because everyone has cold feet from the last one? What do you think?
Jonathan, I really don't know. It's kind of mind-boggling to me why, as leaders in our various communities in the province, that we wouldn't be speaking out on this at all. I have spoken to Patty about it. I've been down to the site a couple of occasions. I've chatted one-on-one with Richard and so on, and I'm trying to keep the conversation going as best I can. I will say up front that I'm certainly not advocating for Richard or anybody to be putting their health at risk, nor am I advocating for civil disobedience. And I've told Richard so, and I've told others so, and I really wish that this could come to some kind of a conclusion, because I really don't want anything to happen to the man. But I do, as I said to him when I met with him, I do respect someone who stands up for what they believe in. And, people have to bear in mind that when we see these drastic actions, this is not something that just happens overnight. When we see things happening, like people burning their fishing gear and people on hunger strikes and preventing people from going into buildings or leaving buildings and so on, it's all a result of frustration and people fighting for the life of themselves and their family and for their communities in a lot of cases and so on. And it's a result of years and years of what people feel to be mismanagement and neglect and not being not being heard, that finally, I guess, pushes them over the edge, for lack of a better. Well,
neither of us are doctors, but you say you respect him for standing up what he believes in and fighting for his family. But tell me, and you say that he should achieve his goals before any harm is done to him, but harm has already been done to him. He's gone 9.5 days without food. He's a type 2 diabetic. He has a heart condition. By all accounts, his vision is blurred. That is an obvious symptom when it comes to people who experience type 2 diabetes and live with type 2 diabetes. Pauline, maybe you can answer this. You visited him. Is he taking medication? Is he still on diabetic medication and medication for his heart condition? I have no idea.
Well, I never specifically got into those questions, but the impression I have, Jonathan, is that he'd be taking his medication and he would be, but he's only drinking water. He's not eating any food whatsoever, nothing. And so it is very concerning. He is putting his health at risk. And I told him face to face, and if he's listening now, I will tell him again, you've made, he has made his point. The issue is out there. Everybody is aware of the issue. And, I really hope that something happens very soon, that, we get some movement or some other commitments to at least so that he can stop what he is doing and hopefully have some meaningful discussions and so on to try to resolve some of these, to try to resolve some of these issues. I really don't want anything to happen to the man, and I know that nobody does. And I've heard people, but the public has mixed views on this. I've heard, very mixed views on it. But I just, I think it's important for people who, may not necessarily not just agree with what he's doing in terms of hunger strike, but not even agree with the cause. I think it's important to realize that, as you said there earlier to another caller, if you wake up one morning and all of a sudden your livelihood has basically been yanked out under your feet,
right?
Then, you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. And I know people have worked in other industries. I heard one gentleman talking about the auto industry and so on. And regardless where you work, it's a tough situation when those types of things happen. But you can't, I suppose people figure, you can't just throw your hands up in the air and accept it and say, oh, well, at the end of the day, a lot of these people have, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in loans on these vessels and licenses and fishing gear and so on that had to be paid for. They'd be facing bankruptcy. They have families to feed. They have homes. And like I said, in a lot of cases, there are communities that the fish plants will be shut down. What are those people supposed to do? Does everybody move to Alberta? What do they do? Does everybody go on income support? This is a very serious matter, and I know I've said, many times, I am certainly no expert when it comes to the fishery. I've had no involvement in the fishery. I don't know a whole lot about the fishery other than what I read, what I hear, and talking to people and so on. I know it's very complex. There's a lot of complex issues, but I think that at the very least, what's been asked for is for us to put people together, I think, who do understand the fishery, get all the stakeholders involved. Let's put all the cards on the table, all the issues, and see if we can work towards some viable solution.
Yeah.
And
the problem is that many people define what cards and what a table is quite differently. Yeah. But Paul, you're right. Steps have to be taken. Some would argue that they've already begun. But the issue at hand here is, does all this happen to capitulate to one individual who's made a political act of a hunger strike? And that is as complicated an issue as the fishery. We got to go to our last break of the evening, but I appreciate you calling in and weighing in on the situation. Have yourself a great weekend.
Thank you, Jonathan, and it's always a pleasure talking. And let me just say before I conclude, that this is not just about one man and one issue. This is we're talking about, like, the focus is on Richard, and rightfully so because of his health and what he's doing. But at the end of the day, there's an awful lot of fishermen and communities that are being negatively impacted here. This is about an industry, and it's about communities, and it's about thousands of Newfoundlanders. It's not just about one person. People have to bear that in mind as well.
We do indeed, and those statements were made by none other than Mr. Gillett himself, and I concur with those. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan.
Good night,
All
buddy.
your best. Okay, bye.
It's great to hear from an MHA. Sure would like to hear.